talk about a campaign that I think is pretty cool because unlike a lot of other marketing campaigns, it doesn't tell our brand story, it's not about our brand, and it doesn't sell a product. And this campaign is America's Farmers. And it started about 5 years ago when we were doing some listening sessions with farmers who are our customers. If you don't know, Monsanto is a sustainable agriculture company, and we primarily sell seeds like corn and cotton and soy. So about 5 years ago, we went to our customers. We're trying to find out some stuff about our brand, what they thought. And one of the questions is, what can we do for you? What do you want from Monsanto? And they said, we are only about 2% of the population, and the other 98% of the population doesn't really understand or care about what we do and how we do it. But they're voting on legislation and regulatory on how we do our jobs, and we need someone to help us tell that story. So that's how America's Farmers was born. It started with this challenge to improve the reputation of modern agriculture with consumers. And it really came down to a crux for AmericasFarmers.com, and that's where the heart of the campaign is. And this website serves kind of two purposes. The first one is to tell the story of modern agriculture. And second is to host some of these advocacy programs that we have that exist to empower farmers. So Grow Communities, for example, is a really cool program where farmers, one farmer from every county in over 1,300 counties across the U.S. is selected every year to receive a $2,500 grant to give to any local nonprofit that he or she wishes. Because farmers are the ones that know their community best. So a lot of this money has gone to local volunteer fire departments, FFA, 4-H, local schools, county fairgrounds, rural education works very similarly, where farmers don't nominate their local schools to be eligible to win a $10,000 or $20,000 grant. We give out several of these to help improve these schools' math and science programs. Grow Ag Leaders is a scholarship program geared toward keeping kids who are interested in ag pursuing higher education in agriculture. And then America's Farmers Mom of the Year seeks to recognize women in agriculture. They're sort of the unsung heroes, and they're the backbone of the operation a lot of times. So it's been really cool to work on those, and that's kind of what AmericasFarmers.com serves. So when we started this 5 years ago, this was kind of our model of how we looked at the world, what we saw our strategy. While we were communicating to consumers, we were marketing both to consumers and to farmers, because we wanted to be seen by farmers, showing that we had listened to what they had asked us to do, and we were acting on it. So we did everything from TV, print, social, digital advertising, even radio, and then all pointed to AmericasFarmers.com. And then once they got there, we really wanted to provide them a really rich, engaging experience. So we looked to feature a lot of interactive stories, a lot of content to bring you deep into the website. So we were measuring things like time on site, pages per view, return visitors. Are we making, this is what we measured success by. And for a lot of years, it was really easy to tell these stories. One of the reasons was that we used real farmers. So in all of our print and all of our television and radio, we used real farmers. So while we were out at these farms, capturing just these, the video and the print that we need, we also captured stories. We had sort of a 24-episode long webisode that told the stories of these families, sort of capitalizing on those shared values, learning their stories. All of these families had different stories, finding out how they operated and why they operated that way. We've got a family who, April Hem is in Iowa. She is the farmer. Her husband works in town. He doesn't farm at all. She does it all by herself, and it's her and her kids. Or there's Travis Matthews, who took over his farm at the age of 16 because his father was in an accident. It's these really engaging human stories that we featured on the website. And then another thing that we did was we didn't really want to be the voice for farmers. We wanted farmers to be the voice. So when we looked at social and on our blog, we really looked to reach out to farmers and have them come and be guest bloggers on our blog. A lot of these farmers didn't have the time or resources to have their own, but they wanted to talk to consumers anyway. And this worked for a lot of years. For about 4 years, we were doing pretty good. We saw excellent engagement on our website. We've been, active on social for a long time. We had about 40,000 followers on Facebook. And while we were on Pinterest and Instagram and Twitter, Facebook was our sort of flagship. That was what we were resourced to do really well, which our audience was. But we had kind of plateaued. So we're looking, how do we go, where do we go from here? How do we grow? And we realized that we needed to kind of go back to what our original goal was. We had been doing advocating for our customers for a long time, but had never really realized that our customers could be their own advocates. There was sort of this untapped market in social. All of these farmers were on social. They had hundreds of people that were their friends and family that are in their community that were consumers that they could be talking to. The thing was, we had to think, how can we empower them to do that? So what did they need? We had to look at what they needed. They needed tools and content, and they needed those tools and content to be optimized for social. So we rethought how we were putting the structure together. And we redid sort of our strategy diagram to include social and have that be the ultimate goal. So if you look on the side here, the 3 C's, 3 of the 5, we really mapped it out on sort of what is the user path from awareness, interest, and engagement. And with the ultimate goal of being advocacy, we really wanted these farmers to be able to share things. One of the great things about when you share something is that you're saying something about yourself. It's just like selling a product. You're not actually selling that product, you're selling how that product makes you feel. So when you're doing content on social, you're not saying what it is about your brand, or you're giving someone content that describes who they are as a person. So with that in mind, we also looked at, so of course, we got awareness, consideration, valuation, trial, adoption, and advocacy. So there's a lot of different ways to do social. For years, we had been doing it sort of up at the top, driving impressions, having people click through to our website. But if you look, if you have it, one, if you do social and you're geared toward engagement and interaction, you end up much further down the funnel because those are much higher value. They take a lot more action than just sort of clicking through to a website. And then when you look at something, especially like Facebook, which was again, our flagship social media property, social follows and likes, that gets broadcast out. Once you like or you follow someone, all your friends know that you now do that. I'm sure all of us have friends who will just not stop about like the Candy Crush stuff, or they like too much stuff, you can block them, they're obnoxious about it. But it helps drive impressions. Same thing with shares. Every time someone shares something, they're helping your content get out there. And ultimately, they're putting dollars in at the top, they're making your advertising work a lot harder. So when we went out, so we have our structure, we looked at sort of, okay, how do we do content then for sharing? And it's looking at what your audience values and what makes sense for your brand to talk about. And this not only means like sort of what's your industry, what does it make sense. We're not going to talk about cupcakes or America's farmers, we're going to talk about farming. But it's also, what does your brand have license to do? So, Purina can go out and do social listening. If you talk about your puppy, they can contact you and do a cute message. If you're eating food and Monsanto's like, hey, did you know that we also grow tomatoes? That's really creepy. Because we don't have license to do that as a company yet. We're just not there. We're B2B, not B2C. So think about, what does your brand or your campaign, your product have license to talk about? And then, most importantly, what does your audience value? So you have to provide them something of value. They're saying something about themselves. They don't care that your brand is super awesome and you think it's the best place to work. They want to share something that says something about themselves. So finding where those two worlds intersect. And then looking at sort of how you frame that content up. People only share things that evoke an emotion. And all the shared content really falls into one of these 3 categories. Love, laugh, and learn. So love are sort of those heartwarming stories that make you feel good, warm, fuzzy. That's kind of what we've been doing with these webisode series. But love is also very limited because if it doesn't actively touch the person sharing it, there's not a huge amount of value, and it's hard to get them to continuously share that kind of thing. We saw with the webisodes, by episode 24, there was a lot of drop-off in engagement. Laugh is really hard for a company to do, especially if you're Monsanto. We're just not funny, guys. We think we are, but we're not. It's really hard for corporations to do. The best stuff that's really funny is just sort of happenstance. You happen to get something that's really funny. You happen on it, or maybe it has to kind of happen organically and learn. This is the one we really thought we could capitalize on. People love, especially millennials. Oh my God, I think I'm so awesome. We love to think that we are sharing interesting and cool and clever information. We share that with our friends and family because it makes us feel like we're that kind of person. So we looked at sort of how do we package up our content and make it fall into this category. So looking at overall how you optimize for engagement, your overall message needs to be clear and concise. So I was just at a conference, heard it over and over again. There's new research out that shows the adult attention span is now 7 seconds. That's officially shorter than a goldfish. So you can't really be asking people to click through or learn more. You have to have your entire message there. So even if they just scan it, even if you have a click through and you have more great content to share, they need to get that in 7 seconds. So even if they're not actively engaging, they're getting your message. It has to deliver value. I'm going to say it over and over and over again. They don't care about your brand as much as you do. So you have to give them something. What does it make sense? How can you make their lives better? How do you make them feel like a better person? Optimize by platform. This one is just sort of looking, where is your audience? If your audience on Facebook, Twitter, if you can be on all those social platforms, be on all of them. But I'm sure lots of you guys work at a company where you're not a resource everywhere you want to be. We're not, definitely. So we really looked at Facebook. That was where we can be really successful. We're doing the other ones, kind of okay. This is the one that will blow out of the water. And that's also looking at sort of how you're creating your content. You don't want to do a long infographic on Facebook because it's not going to show it. That's optimized for horizontal. Facebook is also great for videos, especially now that they have the autoplay. You have to watch it. It's happening. 7 seconds, people. And make sure it's relevant. Relevant to your audience, relevant to your brand, and relevant to the time of year. Be timely if you can. Don't newsjack, but don't talk about Christmas in July. Don't talk about how fun summer is in the middle of winter. It's just going to make you sad. So here's an example of kind of what we did. And I think a key thing here is that, since we changed our strategy, we weren't really looking to drive people to the website anymore. We were looking to create advocates, get people to share our content. About 50% of our content didn't even live on a website. It just lived on that social platform. So that was right there for people to share. So one of our most engaging posts, this one right here, I don't know if you can see, over 2,000 shares and over 5,000 likes, was on Earth Day. It took me 5 seconds to put together on my phone using the photo app. I had the phone, it just says, the original environmentalist, American farmer. You don't even have to read these beautiful stats at the top of the gut to realize that the message is that farmers are environmentally conscious. The land is their legacy. They take care of it. And being timely, we did this post on International Women's Day. And to be honest, all of the facts in here existed sort of on several websites. We just had never packaged it up like this. Honestly, the content team is me. It's just me. So I have to kind of use what I've got. But it was really easy to put together. We put out lots of content, but it's all small, easy, shareable things that matches those, it provided value. It was something that was informational and cool, and we saw great results from it. So in just a year, so it took us 4 years to get 40,000 followers. We did this past year. We're at now over 96,000. We went from about 69 social actions per post to 341 per post on average. Our social traffic to our website, so even though only about 50% of our content drove to the website, our social referrals from Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram grew over 1,400%. And more importantly, We did testing across the board. Our customers, our farmers, our reputation improved with them. They realized, they know we're putting out these messages. They even increased, when they said they strongly agree that we were more likely to buy products from us. So this was all about them. It was empowering them, listening to what they wanted. All of these ads just sort of ended with a very small sponsor with Monsanto. We try to be transparent that it's a company behind this campaign, but we don't throw it in your face. So it's easy to find out that Monsanto's behind America's farmers and that we're sponsoring it, we're proud of it, but it's not about us. It's about farmers, and it was about empowering them. So if I leave you with just a couple takeaways, think social first. Social is now the #1 activity on the web, even before email. It's the first thing people do every day. If you're not thinking social first, you're selling yourself short. And remember, a strategy, if you've got content communication and advertising, social can make your advertising dollars work harder. They drive more impressions. If you're putting money at the top of the funnel, think of how it goes through, and think of how social can help those dollars work harder. Channeling your inner vanilla ice. So when we plateaued, we kind of had to stop, go back, what was our original goal? And we looked at sort of what our audience was already sharing and how we could capitalize on that. I think the best thing that you can do is, there's lots of secondary research out there. I recently heard someone who said, we're drowning in data, but starving for insight. So if you can go and do primary research, ask your customers, what other brands do you follow? Why do you follow them? How do they make you feel? What do you share from them? That information is going to be invaluable. Optimize for social. So don't just do social to do it. Make sure that you're measuring and you're looking at what platform you're on. Is the audience that you want to talk to on that platform? Are you giving them what they want? And last, it's not about your brand, it's about your audience. Again, you have to deliver them value. You have to give them something that's interesting to them. Your brand may be the coolest effing thing in the entire world, but I really don't care unless you can give me something. I think we have questions.
Are there questions over there? Where's our microphone? Team microphone. We have a team, we hold the microphone. We just got green bars. Over there.
Question about how did you get buy-in from leadership to, because it seemed like a campaign like that that has such low, Monsanto was kind of a sub-message, kind of powered by Monsanto. How did you get buy-in from leadership to make that type of investment that's just kind of about building awareness of the category of your customers rather than your brand?
Yeah, it kind of happened, we were lucky that our leadership was actually at these sessions. So they heard this ask of farmers and they understood. And then as soon as even the first year that we did this, when we were still growing awareness, we'd be at conferences, the leadership was at, and farmers would come up and say, I saw your America's Farmers ad, they're so cool, it makes me so proud to be a farmer. So we were kind of lucky that it happened very organically. But in terms of others, it's always easy to show them where it's happened elsewhere, like what other brands have done something like this, and then as soon as possible, measure. And if you can, measure against those things like the fact that customers are now more likely to buy products from us because of these campaigns and how they made them feel. It drives back to dollars, and that's kind of, I think, what the execs kind of look to.
We all know that the haters gonna hate, and I'm sure you received some negative feedback on some of the channels. Did you do any sort of benchmarking in terms of sentiment analysis before and after that campaign?
We really didn't do any benchmarking, and surprisingly, while we do get negative comments, the fact that this isn't about us, it's about our customers, we haven't really seen anything. And we knew that it was going to happen. We didn't know sort of how to benchmark something like this. So what we did was put together a pretty comprehensive plan of how we were going to take care of it, or how we were going to address it, sort of an action plan. Basically a flow chart. So if this happens, then this happens. If this happens, who freaks out, emails who, that sort of thing. And we tried to do a really good job, if we got negative feedback, of engaging, of sort of saying, you know, explaining the program, what we were trying to do, and the thing behind that. And then realizing as well, you know, you have to be a little bit like Taylor Swift and shake it off if it doesn't work. You know, because there's not a lot of people that say, like, I got right on Facebook and talked to this brand and they totally changed my mind about something. So you're probably not going to change that person's mind, but how you react is going to be seen by a lot of other people. So you need to make sure that you're there, you're part of the conversation, you're engaging. Because while you might not change that person's mind, someone else who sees that conversation, you might change theirs.
Anybody else? Well, I can't really speak to whether Monsanto's a hilarious brand or not, but you are hilarious. Well done. Hey, thank you very much. Okay, so our next speaker is, I'm actually really excited because, like I said, I think back to like in the late 90s, there was a magazine called Business 2.0. I don't remember. Great magazine, sort of all the time. And one of my, if not my favorite things in the magazine was the diagrams it had each month from a company called X-Plane, XPLA. It was just like, it took these super complex ideas, narrowed it down to something that was really organized and digestible. Awesome. Probably said it 4 years ago. Awesome. And fast forward to today, and I think that's when we founded it. And we're very honored to have Dave here. He focuses on the problem that we all have, which is you work in a large company, you have an idea, you've got to figure out how to make everybody else see your vision so that they can be like, you are the genius, let's do this thing. So, Dave, thank you for coming and please acknowledge us.
All right, thanks for having me. Okay. I want to talk a little bit about the internal side today. We've heard a lot about marketing and getting more customer-centric and so forth. A lot of us in organizations that have been around for a long time have this hierarchical kind of organization structure, right? Does this look familiar? It's as old as the pyramids, right? You come to the top, and there's people who work for that person. Silos, divisions, we talk about these, right? Organizational silos. This is a typical old school customer. This is what we usually get, right? We go to our telco, we try and call in for a customer support question. We bounce from one silo to another. This is what we're talking about, something that we're trying all to fix, right? This idea that we're bouncing people around, we want to be more customer-centric. We want to have a C1 customer walking across the silos, communicating with this one person. Did we really think we were going to do this without pissing people off inside the organization? Or running into problems, barriers, conflicts, etc. These are people who've been, even good people have been doing the things that they've been doing the way they've been doing it forever. We're suddenly coming to tell them that they're not the center of the equation, the customer has to be. So we're creating, I think, a real disconnect on the internal side. And I know we haven't talked a lot about that, but it comes up in subtle ways in the questions that you're asking, right? How did you get money for that? We only have one person in my team. How did you get a team? How did you justify that? How did you rationalize that? How did you measure that? How did you report that, right? This is all us struggling, trying to make a case with this internal organization. So, you've all seen figures about percentage of change initiatives that fail. They range, but they range from 50% and up. The estimates do. So why do they fail? Think about who has the most to lose in any change initiative. Right, so people who are there, who have to change. People have the most power, most to lose, right? Top 10 barriers to implementation. This comes from Deloitte. What's the number one there? Resistance to change. What is resistance to change? What is that? That's culture. That is culture. It's habits, routines, behaviors. So imagine, well, who has the most power to resist a change? Same people, right? People with the most power. Doesn't necessarily mean they're the highest ones in the hierarchy. They may have informal power. They may be the head of a union. They may be there's all kinds of power, not necessarily all formal, not necessarily all on the org chart. But people have the most power, generally speaking. If you're going to change something, you have the most to lose. Where does that power come from? It's culture. This is a guy named Edgar Schein. He says culture is the primary source of resistance to change. It's just the habits and routines and behaviors that we're in. When trying to think about, a company trying to go through a change. Now, I know that we're sort of, in a lot of cases, we're kind of at the edges of the organization. We haven't, in a lot of cases, come up against this yet, but we're bumping up against it in a lot of little ways. Some people more than others. The company's also bumping up against this sort of customer that's suddenly vocal and rebellious and angry that we didn't, maybe they were there before, but we didn't hear them before, right? So we got all kinds of bumping going on. But if you think about culture change or change happening in a company, within a company, it's kind of like, has anyone here ever quit smoking? I quit smoking 20-some years ago. Imagine 5,000 people all trying to quit smoking at once. That's what a change is like for a company. Like everything that you're doing is associated, every little habit, every little behavior, even where the offices are, how the building is laid out, all that stuff all those behaviors get embedded in the physical environment and so forth. The spreadsheets that we move around, the PowerPoint slides that move around, etc. So what is culture? It's just habits, like I said. Habits and behaviors of the group that we have as a group. Now, they're far more powerful when we have them as a group than when we have them as individuals. I have a friend who's done a lot of culture change work, and what she says, I asked her how she got into it. She said, well, here's what I noticed. You could take a person who is in a poisonous company culture, and they were acting in a very toxic way, and you put them into a different company that had a different culture, and they would change their behavior overnight. And she said, well, I used to do like leadership coaching and stuff, and I realized that's nowhere near as powerful as looking at culture. Because culture does have the power to change people's behavior. Why do we have all these habits and routines? Well, the company's been successful for 100 years. That's why. This stuff worked. It's been working. Stuff that might have worked, might not be working as well anymore, but it takes a long time to realize that. People swim in culture just like fish swim in water. In other words, it's so obvious you don't see it. Like air, it's so obvious that you need it, you don't even see it. It becomes completely invisible. But it is how we swim together, right? It's how we operate, how we coordinate, how we avoid conflict or not, how we fight. So I'm going to bring in a couple of friends to help me discuss culture today. Say hello to Mr. Sharp and Mr. Dolphin. So this is an analogy, okay? I'm not necessarily saying sharks and dolphins have culture. I think they do, but I'm not going to try and persuade you of that today. But they do have ways that they operate. They have traditional behaviors and routines. Sharks are hierarchical, they're territorial. Dolphins are collaborative, they're social. Dolphins would be on Twitter probably before sharks would, right? Sharks, the kind of behavior that they exhibit is they keep their distance from each other, they display their strength and power to each other, they intimidate each other. These are habits and behaviors that exist in a lot of organizations and have for a long time. And these things can be embedded, right? So if these things work for a shark, you throw a shark in a group of dolphins, they're going to have trouble getting along. And vice versa. Dolphins are collaborative, they're social. They whistle. You know? This is actual shark behavior that I've